So Social Security, we've kind of talked in the first segment, we've talked about some of the things that are normal.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about the things that are kind of quirky.
Yeah, this
about
one,
Social Security.
you should explain this one. This is one of my favorite just oddities that
Yeah.
come up. So go ahead.
So again, if you marry, and in my mind, of course, it's the husband, but if the husband were to divorce every 10 years, marry a woman every 10 years and divorce that woman, and once that man reaches his full retirement age, all of his wives, so let's say he married 3 times, 4 times, and hit the numbers exactly right, and those spouses never remarried, they could claim 50% of his Social Security benefit at his full retirement age. So in essence, the system could be paying out not only to him, but all his subsequent wives, for the rest of their lives.
Yeah. So just as you're talking about this, it's the oddity of how the system works. So it says 50% is what they're getting. So he gets 100%. Right. And then wife 1 is 50, wife 2 or spouse 2 is another 50, spouse 3, spouse 4. So we got, we have 300% here of his benefit.
Right.
And there's part of that that's a wonderful thing. If you think about someone who they live together, they built a life together, and then they don't have that income any longer, and the system is still protecting them. That's great.
But this goes into the marriage penalty.
Oh, yeah.
This goes in the marriage penalty. So this is why a lot of older couples retake another, like, let's say they've been married before, or they're a widow or widower.
And they're receiving a benefit from either an ex-spouse or a deceased spouse.
Correct. And so they look at being married. As soon as you get married, your benefits change. So they're saying, well, if I don't get married, I can continue my benefits from my previous relationship, which may be higher than the benefits from my proposed relationship. And so this is what they call the marriage penalty.
Yeah. And that tends to relate to someone who is older in life,
right,
and looking at potentially getting married later in life,
right.
But then realize, hey, this might not financially make any sense, especially if they're living off of Social Security, if that's a meaningful part of their retirement, which it is for many. So we talked about the first part of how the system kind of came to be and why it exists and how it works. But there's these oddities that you mentioned of it pays out at multiple amounts. So then when you think of trying to fix the system, people have said, and it's mathematically true, that the system's going to run out of money. What do you do? And one of the things is changing around some of the numbers, either the benefit amounts or the ages.
Right.
And when you're thinking about a retired single individual trying to make ends meet, you have one thought in mind. But the example you just had, that's a very different thought. One high wage earner with multiple spouses that maybe aren't marrying.
And it seems to me that that's correctable. But again, you want to protect, what Social Security was designed to do is to protect the indigent.
Yeah,
so
the safety.
If you have some, I'm going to call him a horrible man who just picked on women his whole life and married every 10 years because that's what he wanted to do. I think that's a horrible solution, I guess, is what I'm saying to that life. But again, at the end of the day, we have these quirky aspects of Social Security, and divorce, it's a part of our society. And, premature death is a part of our society, and how Social Security interfaces with that. And if the non-working spouse remarries, that could be really an economic loss to that person going forward. So again, it's just the quirky part of the system that you have to know about before you make those final decisions, I guess.
And some of these, like you said, are final decisions. Some of these can be amended and changed, especially when the spouse passes away. But some of these are, you make a choice and it forever is different.
It's locked in.
Yeah, and it's important to review. And we have a number of clients that will work with us, but also we also have some other consultants in odd situations that will come in and kind of walk through bit by bit to understand a specific situation and what the best options would be. So part of fixing the system, another one that we talked about, is change the full retirement age to age 70. That kind of stretches things out. And I think that there's some benefits there, but we talked about initially, if someone were to take it at 62 and they do change it to 70, they're only going to get 57% of that potential benefit.
Right.
And that's a significant decrease for someone who needs the money. They're in that position where they feel they need it. Some of the other options they've looked at in the future is, we've talked about, I don't know how serious people debate this, but you get right now it's $147,000. When someone makes that, they cap Social Security with holdings from your pay, and you don't have to pay it any longer. Well, if they were to do away with that, people who made over 147,000.
So if you're making $1 million a year, you'd pay Social Security on all your earnings,
every single dollar, and that would be a lot more going to the system. The fairness of that, it saves the system perhaps. The fairness of that is to say,
I've looked at some of those numbers, and it wouldn't change
the
economics that much. Yeah,
because we have so many people in our country that make less than that. And that's why they put the caps there. Say, this is what is a reasonable wage to
Right.
pay into the system.
Right.
Yeah, it's a tough moment. So Social Security, I think for anyone out there who's considering it, like, you need to take a good and hard look about what is going to be the best for your immediate future and your full future.
Yeah. When we sit down and talk with clients, we discuss the benefits. Oftentimes the clients, when we take a non-working spouse, in most cases it's the wife, and I explain to them and show them in our illustrations that once your husband reaches full retirement ages and or goes to age 70, you get 1/2 of the full retirement age benefit. Even and they look at me both kind of stunned. You mean I get money? And I said, yes, you're entitled as the spouse, and you've been married at least for 10 years. In other words, you meet all the requirements, and all of a sudden that number changes.
Yeah, it went from 100% to now 150%.
Exactly.
What they thought they might be getting.
And most people look at us like, oh, that's a peculiar, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But we put that within the plan, and it shows that cash flow. And that's one of the reasons why we want people, particularly the husband, to work until 70 if they can.
Yeah.
Because if they have a non-working spouse, when that husband dies, and we're assuming the husband's going to die before the wife is going to get the full benefit of that higher dollar amount. They're not going to keep both of them. They're going to keep the higher of the one, and that's going to give them a much better outcome.
Yeah, it's a great future planning to kind of have that set up for the longevity. Because a lot of people, their big concern is outliving their funds, and Social Security, unlike 401k, things that are dwindling, perhaps, it continues on.
Right.
It keeps going.
And it also has cost of living benefits. You understand, it's like right now, Social Security's had a big leap in benefits and structure going forward. So we've got, again, it's not trivial. I mean, we're sitting down with clients and people are making good wages, good salaries. Their Social Security benefits $5,000 a month or more. At age 70 and on, and that's not trivial money.
No, that's meaningful. That's a retirement, and that makes a difference between me and a lot of folks in this demographic. They've paid off their houses, they've paid off their cars, so to live off of that is very reasonable. At that point
they can live.
If
you'd like to know anything, if anything we're talking about or any other subjects that you would like Jeremiah and I to talk about, just give us an email. Go to retirementunlimited.com and click on the contact buttons or whatever. Just call our office at 951-684-7011. We'd be more than happy to consider that as a topic to talk about in this particular session.
Yeah, and if you missed any part of this episode, you can catch us on our website, retirementunlimited.com, or you can find us on YouTube.